Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 10th already of 12 AMOS webinars. My name is Mojca Baudaš. I come from the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia, where this session is hosted, and today I will also act as facilitator. Now, let me first explain for any newcomers that AMOS stands for the European Master in Official Statistics, which is the joint project of universities and data producers, the EU member states, EFTA, and EU candidate countries. Now, this network now comprises 23 master programs in 15 countries and is expected to grow soon, because the third call for applications is now out, and you can see on the slide the deadline is 30th of June. Now let me explain briefly how we run the webinar today. As a participant, you can watch and listen to the session, and to interact with the presenters, you can use the chat window on the right. I see that most of you already did that. But I really encourage you to also pose the questions here throughout the webinar. So whenever you have a question, just write it down in the chat box, and the presenters will respond during question breaks. Now, should you experience any technical issue, we have a very simple suggestion: just try restarting the Adobe Connect or the computer. This usually mysteriously solves all the problems. And now to the topic of today's webinar, experimental statistics. We've heard in many webinars this year about new data sources and new methods, but how to introduce this into the framework of official statistics that is renowned for verified input data, sound and also verified, proven methodology, and high quality outcomes. I'm very happy to host today two presenters who will shed some light on this question. First, Martin Karlberg from Eurostat, and then Pierre Lamarche, previously also from Eurostat, now at INSEE. Now, Martin's background is in statistics. He first worked as a biostatistician in the pharmaceutical industry, and thereafter he first joined Statistics Sweden, where he worked on small area estimation and experiments embedded in sample surveys. He then moved to Eurostat, where he assumed several roles that at least I see most connected with the academic world, like chairing scientific committees of conferences related to research in official statistics, guest editing issues for the Journal of Official Statistics. He is currently team leader for research and innovation in official statistics, and since last year also responsible for coordinating the experimental statistics of Eurostat. So Martin will talk first. Please, Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mojca. So, indeed, when we talk about experimental statistics and what it is, we must also talk a bit about what it is not and how it is related to official statistics. So, as many, if not all of you know, official statistics are great, and they are really gold standard for evidence-based policy making. We have a solid institutional environment with impartiality, objectivity, and confidentiality embedded via, for instance, the European Statistics Code of Practice. We have statistical processes of high quality, we have sound and proven methodology, and this all results in a high quality output according to the quality dimensions which many of you are familiar with. We get statistics that are relevant, accurate and reliable, timely, and above all punctual, released on time according to schedule, coherent and comparable. And comparability is, of course, an aspect that is particularly important if you have statistics that are presented in an international context, like the European statistics that are produced by the European Statistical System and disseminated by Eurostat. And you have statistics that also are clear and accessible, and this is something which has greatly improved over the last couple of decades, with statistics now being published or disseminated for free, whereas prior to that there was a charging model for certain official statistics. So all in all, this results in official statistics being evidence that you can trust. You can trust this evidence so much that you can make serious policy decisions based on them, and you can also trust them as a regular citizen making life decisions based on information on where there is work, where and based on prices, price statistics, etc. However, although we are in such a great situation, sometimes official statistics is not enough. We have rapidly emerging phenomena. For instance, we have a complete new kind of economic and business models that are developing. The sharing economy, etc. We have mass migration happening with rather dramatic development, where official statistics naturally lags far behind. We have new data sources that are possible to exploit, and here I'm of course talking about so-called big data. And we are also and we also have new methods that are being developed, and that might lead to new and better improved official statistics in the long run, but which cannot be deployed just like that within the current framework. So you have all these new challenges and opportunities, and you have rather long lead times before new official statistics can be rolled out, and this is especially pronounced in a multi-tier system like the European Statistical System, where there are multiple actors involved, both national statistical institutes and Eurostat, and you have also policymakers both at the national and the European level wanting to have a say. And you need to have a consensus in order to proceed. You need, and you will have, even if you have new and exciting data sources, and some actors might be able to gather data rather quickly, you will have gaps in data because not everybody can evolve at the same pace, and the methods employed might be controversial. For instance, there might be rather explicit model-based estimation methods which might be promising, but it could also be discussed whether they are appropriate or not. And the new sources which we rely on, they might in the end be they might be very promising, they might have a great potential, but they might also be unreliable and not be up to scratch. So, all in all, there are different approaches possible when faced with this. One approach, which of course is perfectly legitimate, is to stick to core business and say that our business is official statistics, so we will take no risk in disseminating anything which isn't up to the strictest of quality standards. We will not waste any resources on experimental endeavors. And if somebody would like to experiment and publish new stuff, fine, let them do it, but we will not touch it. One could also have the approach to conduct study, but do not release. So one could conduct studies on new phenomena and publish this as journal articles or as discussions on the website of the Statistical Institute. Or one could have sort of internal discussions and maybe have technical discussions at meetings and conferences, but not really put the figures out there. Or one could bring this a step further, take a bit of a risk, but also to have some potential benefits by proceeding to produce and release experimental statistics. So I'm now using a term the term experimental statistics, but what is it actually? Well, experimental statistics are, at least so far, statistics that are produced using either new data sources and or new methods. And as these experimental statistics are developing, they are developed rapidly, they are not necessarily fully mature when you consider harmonization, coverage, for instance in the case of European statistics across all member states, or in terms of methodology, and then sort of as a corollary they need not be perfectly accurate either. So with this description, I would like to launch the first question of the day, which is, for which quality dimensions, referring back to the ones that I mentioned a few slides ago, do you think that experimental statistics could score higher, be better than official statistics? So here I would like to invite you to take your pick, and then we'll see what you think in a moment.
Yes, let's give participants
exactly.
Think about.
I see some movement. I see some, should I say, voting.
Yes, and whenever you feel appropriate, just let me know that I can broadcast the results.
Exactly. At the moment, I still see development. Now the voting will very soon close. I do not see very much more voting. So I think we can now actually broadcast. Let's broadcast the results. The poll is now closed, and so I think that you and I, meaning you in the audience and me, we have a rather the same view here in this on this question. It is indeed so that, I mean, as you can now see, it is really in terms of relevance and timeliness that that experimental statistics has the greatest potential. And we will soon see a few examples of flash estimates, and we will also see So flash estimates that will indeed allow for more timely statistics to arrive, and we can also say that experimental statistics have a great potential for being more relevant in the sense that they can cover phenomena that you are interested in that current official statistics do not currently cover. So I'm glad to see that either the audience was already very well informed prior to this lecture, or I have been efficient so far in my presentation. So the question is then, now I've been talking about experimental statistics abstractly. So what do the experimental statistics actually look like? Now I would encourage you to, I guess, after this lecture to see for yourself. For instance, by checking out Eurostat's experimental statistics web page, where we currently have 8 products rolled out online. And when you browse these 8 different experimental statistics products, you will see that they have different formats. Some of them have a look and feel very similar to that of traditional official statistics. It's data sets in Eurobase, and the only thing that sets them apart is that they have a little label that says experimental to highlight this. Others are machine processable, so it, for instance, or machine readable, so it's Excel sheets and the like, but they are standalone, so they are not injected in our regular dissemination database. Others are quite static in nature, so it's figures and it's diagrams, but they are part of like PDF articles such as Statistics in Play Explained. So you can look at them, but you cannot, unless you make an effort, export them to a medium where you can process them. And some of them aren't sort of statistics in the traditional sense, so they are rather online tools, such as the food price monitoring tool, where you can where you don't have like just a data set, but rather a dynamic tool which you can play with. And when we are presenting our experimental statistics at Eurostat, then we have a standardized structure for each experimental statistics product. It's very simple. You are not expected to read this screenshot, but you will easily be able to read through the web pages once you browse through Eurostat's experimental statistics online. There's a section on why we need these statistics. There's a section on why these statistics are experimental. What is it in what is it in their nature that makes them not official? Is it because it's new data? Is it because it's a new method, or is it because of something else? And then we also take pains to present in great detail how these experimental statistics are produced. So for each experimental statistics product, there is a methodological note. And finally, or almost finally, penultimately, there is a section where the actual statistics are, which I presume is what most people are interested in. So either it's a link or an embedded link directly to the dissemination database, or it is a link to the Excel tables or the PDF publications or to the tool. And finally, also importantly, there is a feedback section which is open for your questions and suggestions, or anybody's questions and suggestions. And then the question is also, what are these experimental statistics about? What kind of topics do they tackle? And well, you can easily again see this by browsing Eurostat's experimental statistics website. Suffice it to say that it covers various domains, currently with a bit of a slant towards social statistics, but we also have price statistics, enterprise statistics, and the global account. And we will learn more in greater detail about income, consumption, and wealth from Pierre in a moment. And then, what are these experimental statistics actually good for? So I could talk at length about this, but to take but one example, we have a priority for the European statistical system to provide timelier social statistics. This is all great. It's a well-identified need, but we have, as I just said, very long lead times for doing so, to come out with a new official statistics product approved by everybody. And these timelier social statistics is needed now in order to serve as policy evidence. So therefore, flash estimators of income inequality and poverty indicators have been developed, and they are then released much earlier than the final data, and it's something that at least can serve as the basis for preliminary discussions and analysis before the final data become available. So I would then like to ask you the same question as before, but if you now could launch the second poll. So for which quality dimensions do you think that this specific set of flash estimates of income inequality and poverty indicators could score higher than the official indicators on income inequality and poverty? So have you launched the poll now, Moitza?
Yes. The poll is launched.
Okay, so then let's see.
Receiving.
Ah, yes, now I see the replies coming in at speed, which is good. Yes. Okay. Now I think the pace of data entry has slowed down, so I think that we can already now close the poll and broadcast the results. And of course, it can always be discussed exactly what they are good for, but indeed, timeliness is, of course, as you rightly point out, the most important feature. This is already evident from the descriptions. They arrive much faster. And again, of course, this has indeed, as many other participants point out, this also carries over into relevant, because if an indicator is relevant but doesn't really arrive when you need it, is it relevant anymore? This is, of course, a philosophical discussion common to many statistical products, and nothing that's specific to experimental statistics. But I would like to thank the audience for the rapid feedback, and I think that we see eye to eye on this. And so in general, what are experimental statistics good for? We now spoke specifically about this set of flash estimates of income inequality and poverty, but in general, well, as I already said, these experimental statistics can use new sources to capture new phenomena, and they can also be used to as a test bed for new methods that can deliver faster statistics, like these flash estimates that we were just talking about, or more granular statistics, where you drill down into subgroups and municipalities where the data as traditionally analyzed do not suffice, but where modeling, for instance, can help to let us produce some estimates, borrowing strength, for instance, from the general structure of the data by means of small area estimation. And at least in the case of European statistics, this allows us to try out new statistics, sometimes years before official statistics on the same topic could be expected to go online. This can also be used as a staging ground for providing impartial evidence to or provide evidence in an impartial way to all stakeholders, by rather than sending specific analysis to a policymaker that asks for it, produce this specific analysis, but do it in the framework of experimental statistics and put it in the public domain so that everybody gets the same analysis at the same time. And also, very importantly, this allows for a discussion with users and allows us to get feedback from users before official statistics are developed. So it allows us to fine-tune the methods that we use, etc. But now the question is, I just said before official statistics are developed. So then the question is, does everything now all by a sudden have to be experimental statistics before it becomes official statistics? I was speaking about it as if that were the case, but no. It is a possibility to use experimental statistics for staging new candidates for official statistics, but it's not mandatory to do so. And it's not so either that if you put something out like a piece of experimental statistics that you get like a fast track to promoting this product to official statistics. The same procedures apply as before. So it can even be the case. So if something is being proposed as a piece of official statistics, it can be done so without ever being experimental statistics before, following the traditional route. And it's also so that some experimental statistics might never see the light of day as official statistics because the data sources are deemed to be too shaky. It's not possible to develop any reliable methodology given the data that you have, or the methodology is somehow too controversial or too questionable, or it's something where, okay, it's nice to have, it's fun to see as experimental statistics to discuss, but it's not really something where in an environment of resource shortages it's meaningful to invest a lot, because statistical offices of course have to focus and put their resources where the highest priorities are. And I've now been talking up experimental statistics quite a bit, but are experimental statistics all good? Why isn't everybody doing experimental statistics? Well, from the side of Eurostat, we try to protect the brand of European statistics, so our official statistics, by having a separate web page for experimental statistics, by clearly labeling every product as experimental statistics, by having specific methodological note describing what these are about, But there is, of course, still a reputational risk. The quality of what we are doing is not guaranteed. I mean, the experimental statistics might score high for relevance, and they might score high for timeliness, but of course, as you've already indicated in your answers to the polls, we might have issues with accuracy, comparability, etc. So there's always a risk that although we have labeled this very clearly and presented a context, a user might still just rip out the figures out of the context and just remember that these are the figures and they have been published by Eurostat. And then we might have a reputational risk. Fortunately, although absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, we have not had any incidents reported so far. So that's at least something. But it is a risk where we have to be constantly vigilant. And I'm talking about experimental statistics and Eurostat all the time, but it's not so that Eurostat is alone in this. We are not alone in this, and we are not first in this endeavor either. There are notable predecessors both outside and inside of the European statistical system, such as Statistics Netherlands, Statistics New Zealand, and we also have examples from Latvia and the ONS UK. And we are now constructing, upon the requests of the directors of methodology, European Experimental Statistics Hub as part of the Digicom project. And finally, I have some homework for the class. As I said, it's possible for you to make your voice heard. So I've already encouraged you to go to the Eurostat Experimental Statistics website, and you can go there. And we have different modes of feedback, so I would propose that you pick one of the 4 experimental statistics products that I list there. Because there we have a feedback forum, and then check out the product for yourself. See if they make sense. See if the methodological note is on the spot. See if there are any methodological issues, and see if you have any bright ideas of how these statistics could be done better. And then once you have done so, you could go to the European Statistics User Forum and give your feedback and ask, and you shall be answered by the people that are actually behind these experimental statistics product. You can ask how they did these statistics, and you can come with your own suggestions, and then you can see. Then you can actually be part of the process of improving our experimental statistics, and thereby possibly improving forthcoming official statistics. And it wouldn't be possible for me to give this presentation today if there weren't actual experimental statistics products being developed. I'm just the coordinator from a topic perspective, supported by the dissemination unit. So now we're going to learn a bit more about one specific product on income, consumption and wealth, which has been developed by Pierre Lamarche during his tenure here at Eurostat. He is now, as Moisa said, back at INSEE of France, but very much, of course, still in the loop in this endeavor. So with these words, I would like to leave the floor to you, Pierre. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can now take some questions. So I would really invite participants to post questions in the chat box. And while waiting for a question or two from the audience, I just like to ask you how, let's say, you selected the topics. So who came up with the topics? Yeah.
Okay, so in principle, it's very much bottom up. It is at least initially, in sort of the generation of topics, the process was very much bottom up. Then before. So in the ID generation process, it's bottom up. It's the production units which have specific needs and proposals and developments which they think are appropriate to have as official, as experimental statistics. But then, of course, we have to have a corporate approach as well. So then we also have a rigorous screening process which involves an internal committee composed by representatives. So it's an internal methodological advisory committee that screens all proposals, and then a decision is taken by the director in charge of methodology at Eurostat on whether to go ahead with this or not. So the proposal comes from the business, and then the screening is done corporately, jointly by representatives from all over the house, and then finally there is a go-ahead given by the director for methodology. There is also a regular annual screening of the entire portfolio of experimental statistics products to try and identify gaps and see if there are proposals that should be arriving from units, and encourage those that haven't put forward suitable proposals to do so.
So, but this is an internal process.
Exactly, it's a Eurostat internal process. However, whenever there is as we are the custodians of data of others, whenever there are data that have been submitted by member states that should have a say in the process, then the business unit is responsible for consulting with their national counterparts to make sure that they are also in the boat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Let's now move on. We'll just for a second pause. And now, before I give the floor to Pierre, just a few words about him. Pierre's background is in statistics and economics, and he's been working at INSEE, the French National Statistical Institute, before being seconded at the European Central Bank and Eurostat. He has been mainly dealing with social surveys, and his activities ranging during his career from design to data use, and especially surveys on wealth. He's now back at INSEE, where he's responsible for the redesign of the French survey on income and living conditions, and I guess that many of you know this survey under the acronym of SILC. So Pierre will talk about his work done at Eurostat. Pierre, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so I will speak about this work that I have conducted when I was seconded at Eurostat on measuring the joint distribution of income, consumption, and wealth. But this is a work in which I've been involved during, one position I held at INSEE between 2011 and 2013. 2014, and then also at the European Central Bank. So these were things that I already worked with. So just about the outline, about the things that I will sketch in the next coming minutes. So I will give you some pieces of backgrounds first. Then I will present the published statistics under this project, this experimental project on income, consumption, and wealth. I will give you also a few hints about the methodology that we implemented for designing and computing these new statistics, and we will have a look also on the way forward. So just about the background, basically when you speak about income, consumption, and wealth, there are two work streams that are there for the official statistics. The first one is the availability of the joint distribution of income, consumption, and wealth, meaning that we are able to measure separately income, consumption, and wealth, but we do not have a very accurate picture on the interaction between these three dimensions. And this is something that we need to improve significantly, especially in the context where there are many academic papers showing the increase of inequalities, especially regarding income and wealth. And the second one, which is very specific to official statistics, is these huge differences that we have in terms of concepts and methodology regarding national accounts and microdata. So we need to fill the gap that exists between those different data sources, and for which we have difficulties to provide a good explanation. So what we did beforehand is that we ran a round of consultations in order to collect as much feedbacks as possible coming from the different potential users. So you have here the non-exhaustive list of the different events that we had just prior to entering into the core design of the experimental statistics, so as to gather as much as possible the wish of the users. One particular event was this GINS 2016. So GINS stands for Directorate General of the National Statistical Institute. It's in French, so it's spelled this way. It means that, and this means that all the director generals from the National Statistical Institutes from Europe gather together and speak about one specific topic. And in 2016 in Vienna, it was about this income, consumption, and wealth topic. So the main conclusions were the following ones. We had to develop a harmonized ICW statistical framework. We have also to insist on the importance of the multi-source approach. So we need to use all the available data sources that exist and make them consistent as much as possible. Of course, we also need to promote closer cooperation between national accountants and survey statisticians, which may turn to be quite difficult sometimes. And we need also to cooperate closely with the academic world and the other institutions that are interested in this topic, which are basically in Europe, ECB and the OECD. About the published statistics. So in June 2017, so one year ago, something like that, we published the experimental statistics on ICW on the Eurostat website. So you can go there and you can browse these new statistics. One thing that need to be mentioned is that it's about the year 2010, so it's quite old. But we are in the process of performing the same exercise for the 2015 data. So the data that are incoming should be fresher. And we try to adopt this multi-level strategy, communication strategy, meaning that we need to target different types of audience, so the public in general, but also the advanced users. So we have these statistic explained articles, but we have also some methodological notes explaining in details what kind of methodology we have implemented and what kind of results we have. And we have a forthcoming working paper in order to be very exhaustive on the description of the methodology. And you have a link in order to just go straight to the web page. So the data that we have here cannot qualify for sure for official statistics. So they appear in the experimental section with this logo that Martin told you about, and which is very convenient because we can very easily label the fact that these statistics are not official at all. And we have this multi-level communication. Where we have three simple statistic explained article, which aim at explaining the data and the method, and we have one more elaborate note and one working paper. And everything is available on Eurobase. So Eurobase is this web page on Eurostat website, where you can download the raw data directly. And one thing that needs to be mentioned, despite what Martin mentions earlier, is that all the graphs that you have in the statistic explained article can be generated thanks to the data which are available on Eurobase. So meaning that basically you are able to regenerate everything by yourself, and they will give you some tools to do that. So this is the web page where you have on Eurobase all the data that you can just visualize or even download. So this is normally made to be very convenient for the users, and you can have even routine written in R or in SAS in order to automatically download the data. I will come on this later on. So about the indicators that we want to display, we want to extend the already existing set of indicators about poverty, about income, and about consumption. So we have these consumption-based indicators because the focus in Europe is largely targeting income, and we want to extend the field of analysis. So we have these consumption-based indicators, a bit like the American CPS absolute measure of poverty. And we have also implemented something which is similar to what we do for income, but on consumption, meaning that we take the 60% of median equivalized expenditures. And there are examples in the literature where this kind of things is already done. So we just base our work on existing publications. We have these saving-based indicators. So if you have income, if you have consumption, you have also the residual, which is basically what I call savings. And we want also to see how many people are actually saving or de-saving in 1 year time. So meaning that if you are able to earn more than what you spent on a yearly basis, so it means that basically you're well off. And in the opposite case, there are of course issues about what's happening with the household budget. And finally, we have this asset-based indicators. So this is to include the wealth element, so the W, and we want to copycat in a way what has been done in the literature by Bandolini in 2009 or Tomaletto in 2012. So these are also something that I will be speaking about later on. So just some hints about what we have published. So this is one of the statistics that we have published. We are very much interested in looking at the interaction between the different indicators I spoke about earlier. So we are interested here. So here you have the different countries, something like 27 countries are here. So we just missed Netherlands because Netherlands did not provide microdata for the HBS, for the household budget survey, but for the rest we have the data. And here you have the proportion of households that are concerned by one kind of vulnerability. So in yellow, you have the proportion of households that are actually income poor. So this is the usual indicator that we use to analyze poverty in Europe. In orange, you have the households that are not concerned by poverty, income-based poverty, but that are concerned by, let's say, low levels of expenditure. So this means that they spend very low levels of money in order to finance their consumption. And so they have a very low level of consumption accordingly. And the blue line is what is very interesting for us, and which also explains why we are interested in the joint distribution, is that these are the people that are actually combining the two types of vulnerabilities. And this is very interesting because this means that this particular part of the population is very, very at stake in terms of poverty and vulnerability. So this is the kind of thing that we want to enlighten. Now we have indicators about saving rates, so the residual between income and consumption, and this is a very accounting framework, let's say. So we are actually basically taking part of the framework that comes to the national accounts, and we try to implement it at the micro level. So you have here all the countries, and here you have the median and the aggregate saving rate that we observe in the survey. And you see that there are huge differences in terms of saving rates across Europe, which means also that, of course, in terms of consumption behaviors, this has a huge impact, not only at the micro level, but probably also at the aggregate level. So this is also here why this is very important to understand who is saving and who is not saving in the population. Here you have basically the Lorenz curve, where you display the inequalities between households, among households in terms of income. So this is the dark blue line. In terms of consumption, this is the light blue line. You see that basically the inequalities are very similar according to these two dimensions. But once you take the residuals, so the savings, this is the yellow line, and you see that the inequalities are very much higher for the savings. So this is very interesting, especially if you are actually interested in explaining the origin of the increase of wealth inequalities. So we see that there is an increase of wealth inequalities, and probably the fact that people are able to save money on a yearly basis more or less has to play a role in order to explain this increase of inequalities. And we see that the savings are already very much heterogeneous among the population, and probably this explains at least partly the increase of wealth inequalities. Then you have this asset-based indicator, so meaning that we want to implement something which is very, very similar to the income poverty, but for the assets. So we are actually interested in looking at the assets as a reserve for the household in order to finance their consumption. So if you have lots of assets, basically you are able, even if you face a huge decrease of your income, this is not a problem because you're still able to finance your consumption by taking on your assets. So this is something that we want also to show, because obviously the three dimensions are very important when you try to explain vulnerability. And you see that in this graph, so you have a very limited number of countries, because these are the countries that are actually conducting the Household Finance and Consumption Survey, which is a survey aiming at measuring assets and indebtedness in Europe. and not all the European countries are running this survey. So for 2010, here you have all the data available, and you can see that basically the more people own their main residence, the less likely they are to be vulnerable in terms of this indicator. So there is also a reflection to be led regarding the core building of these indicators.
Pierre,
So,
may I interrupt you with a question from the audience? What type of assets do you consider?
yeah, so in this case, we consider the financial assets, so any types of financial assets. We consider also professional assets, meaning that if you are able to, if you have your own business and this business has a value, we count in it. Also what we call the real estate assets. So if you own your main residence, the value of this main residence is counted in these assets. And if you own also other real estate assets, it's also included in. So it's very broad, actually. And what we see in the literature is that we should probably try to mitigate these kind of indicators by taking liquid assets, for instance. So there is obviously a work to be conducted on this on the building of the indicators, because you need to at least make vary the definition of assets in order to have a better picture and have a better overview of the situation of the country.
Okay, thank you.
Then you have this. The published statistics here. So this is the screenshot that I took is not up to date, because now all the codes that you can see here are on the Eurostat repository. So I can send you the link if you are interested in. But the core idea is that you can take all the data that are available on Eurobase, and you can generate your own graphs thanks to R, by downloading automatically all the data and by generating also the scripts automatically. So this is also this kind of idea that you want to share not only the data but also the methods, and to exhibit as much as possible clearly the way you have computed the indicators. So this is why we try to disseminate not only the data but also the codes, and this has to do with a broader reflection not only regarding experimental statistics but official statistics as well, meaning that you need to come clear and transparent about the methods and the processes that you have implemented in order to convince the audience. So about the methodology that we have implemented. So basically, when we were at the starting of the project, we were facing different options. The first one was the survey integration. The second one was the multi-source approach. The third one was statistical matching, and the fourth one was modular approach. So there are descriptions of this kind of options. If some of you are not completely clear about what these terms cover, I can be more specific. But basically, there are options that are not to be considered in the short term, but more on the medium long term, and some others that we can implement right away with the existing data. And statistical matching is probably a second best because it has very many flows, but at least we can use the existing data and implement this statistical matching right away on the existing data, which is also a way to come with data, come with existing indicators, and try to initiate a discussion about the relevance and the clarity of the chosen indicators. Indeed, for the statistical matching purpose, we were relying on the cumulative experience by Eurostat on this topic. So we tried the various methods. One very simple, which is purely based on hot deck. So you take observation in HBS that you have in HBS about consumption, basically, with the same X, sorry, I missed the X, and you allocate this observation in EU Silk. So it's multidimensional, non-parametric, and completely stochastics. There is also other methods that can be implemented. We also have tried what I call a mixed approach, where you estimate the conditional mean of consumption according to the X's. Then you allocate the observation in HBS and in EU Silk using the cumulative distribution function. So meaning that you basically rank the households in HBS and in EU Silk with the same variable, which is this conditional mean, and then you allocate the household in HBS into EU Silk according to this ranking. Okay. We also follow, of course, the literature and especially the Bible regarding statistical matching, which has been written by Dorazio and et al. In 2006. They say that comparative between the two surveys is very important. So you have to run some ex post harmonization, and you have also to select the candidate variables for the matching. We implemented an automatic selection procedure for method 1, and there was a comprehensive set of covariates for method 2. Here again, everything is explained in the methodological notes, so I will be very swift on this. We do also multiply imputed data, so meaning that we perform the matching not one time, but actually 1,000 times, which has the advantage that we can have an estimation at least of the uncertainty of the matching. Not completely, of course, because there are also it does not relax the conditional independence assumption, but at least we have an idea of how fuzzy how uncertain the matching is. And in order to relax or to assess the impact of the conditional assumption, there is this fresh bounds approach where you can try to just estimate with algebraic properties the plausible values for which the true value is plausibly in between. Okay, so we also try to compare what we get in terms of distribution, marginal distribution of consumption between the different surveys. So this on the dark blue line, you have so the dark blue line that you have here is the distribution as we observe in HBS. So this is the benchmark. The light blue line is what we get from the matching, and you have also this shaded area in very light blue, which stands for the confidence interval, let's say. So this is basically what we get from the 1,000 estimations. Okay, we do the same thing with savings. So we are interested not only on reproducing the consumption pattern, but also the savings. So this means that here we are very much interested in the interaction. So for some of the countries in HBS, we also observe perfectly the disposable income as we observe it in EU SIC. So meaning for this particular set of countries, we could avoid performing this matching because we already have the data. But we still perform the matching in order to assess how reliable the method is. And this is what we did, for instance, for Belgium, and we can see the distortion that we introduced through these methods. Here we have the same thing, but with heat maps. So basically, we are interested in the interaction between income deciles and consumption deciles, and we look at this interaction through heat maps. So we have also very numerical indicators, such as the Hellinger distance, which give very simple criterion in order to assess the quality of the data, but we also have this visualization tool that are very convenient for the audience. And we can choose between method 1 and method 2 according to this kind of criteria. Okay, so what we tried also, but I will be very swift on this, is that we also try to assess the quality of the data through the comparison with other sources. So in some cases, we know that we have a good idea of the proportion of dissaving households, for instance, because this is a question that is asked in one particular survey. And then we compare the results that we get from fieldwork with what we get from the matching experience. So one thing is that, for instance, you have a very huge proportion of people that are actually dissaving on a yearly basis, which is a bit puzzling because in terms of sustainability of the budget constraints, it does mean something. So we try to explain this, or at least to check that the data that we have are consistent with what the households are actually reporting, and this is basically the case here. So in a way, okay, we are still puzzled, but we try to check as much as possible with external data the reliability of what we get. About the W, so we implemented this as the methodology that I have just described was implemented for matching silk for income and HBS for consumption. For wealth, it's much more complicated because we have this HFCS, the Household Consumption and Household Finance and Consumption Survey, which is only available for participating countries. And then we perform an experimental matching between the fused silk HBS data and the HFCS. And here again, we try to rely on the cumulative distribution functions of gross income, which is observed not only in silk, but also in HFCS. So we try to find this matching variable, which is very relevant in terms of wealth, in terms of assets, so that we perform the matching which seems to be the more realistic. What I want also to say, and it was previously the way forward, but now it's something which has been published and which is online as well, is about taxation issues. Because what we need to bear in mind is that what we do as experimental statistics in the end must have a use for policy purposes, and especially when it comes to ICW topic, the ultimate goal is about taxation and trying to alleviate in some way the inequalities that appear in the society. So this work has been extended to indirect taxation, so which is very nice because then you can extend the direct taxation picture that you already have through Silk and through Euromod, and you can extend it to total taxation, and then you have very broad picture about what is the fiscal burden that households are facing according to their income, and then you are able to say something which is supposedly more relevant in terms of redistribution and in terms of fiscal policies. So this is an experiment that we have conducted on our experimental data, but what I need to say is that it has also been implemented on Euromod. So Euromod is this fiscal simulator on European data, and they have tried to do the same exercise that we have done on our data. So there is a working paper which has been published by the University of Essex. I can give you the link as well. I see the question. And you can also compare the results. What I want to say, because I'm just running out of time, I guess, is that we try also to always compare what we get through this kind of data with what we have in the national accounts, because it's very important to be as much as possible consistent between the different data sources. So here, for instance, on these graphs, you have two different figures. The blue line is the figures that we get from the microdata, and which is basically relying on what we did as experimental statistics. And the yellow line is the benchmark coming from the national accounts. And we want just to assess how far we are from the national accounts, and just to have an idea on the reliability of our statistics as well. So now to conclude about this taxation issues, what we have very easily when we speak about value-added tax is that it's really easy with the HBS data just to have an idea of the fiscal incidence along the income distribution, for instance, as a share of expenditures. But it's completely not sufficient to have a very nice overview of the fiscal burden, because it does not say what is the share according to income, and this is what we want to have. But for this, we of course need to have income in the microdata, and this is what we have through the matching. So now what you see is that VAT, according to as a share of gross income, is actually decreasing along the income distribution, meaning that the wealthier people, the people that are earning more, are actually paying less in terms of proportion of VAT than the poorest one. So this is something which is already well known, because the consumption structure is very different along the income distribution, and also there are saving behaviors where actually the richest people are saving more than the poorest ones. So this is why we have this shape, and what we want to do is to complement this picture with direct taxation, because of course here we are focusing only on the VAT. So we want to know whether the fiscal system as a whole is still progressive or not. And what we get from the results is it looks like it's progressive, but we take of course the income quintile. So the range that we just take for the analysis are very large, also because our data are not that reliable, so we need to be the more conservative possible. And I will just finish with the way forward. So we need to switch from prototyping to production chain. So this is an ongoing work. We want to apply the method on the 2015 wave, and normally the data should be published as soon as possible. We keep collecting feedback and ways for improvement. So of course, after this presentation, you're very welcome to look at the data and just share the comments and feedback that you have. And we have this modular approach where we want to run and conduct several experiments. So there is a wealth module on the French silk, and so far the results that we get from this wealth module are consistent with other sources. And in the European context, there is this over-indebtedness, consumption, and wealth module in the EU silk. So silk is this survey on income. That will be exploited when available. So the data were collected the year before, in 2017, and they should be now available in Eurostat, inside Eurostat, and probably on the way to be exploited. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Well, we are just left with a few minutes. So far, no more questions from the audience, but I really encourage you to pose questions. You have now really just 2-3 minutes. In the meantime, I just like to ask, let's say, how much resources do experimental statistics take? I don't know if it's for you, Pierre. Maybe how much time was invested, how many people were working on such a product?
So when it comes to my project, to the income, consumption, and wealth, so what you see is that there are basically two work streams, and we were two of us. So I was specifically working with the microdata because I was, let's say, more aware of the specificities of surveys. And the other person I was working with was more targeted on the consistency between national accounts and survey data. But basically, this was two persons working full time, and I came at Eurostat in beginning of 2016 and left just at the beginning of this year, so which gives you an idea of what it takes in terms of time.
Yeah. And have you received any, let's say, feedback from users so far, or is it still too early to say something about the future of, let's say, this experimental statistics?
So the few feedbacks that we got, basically people were quite satisfied, especially with the format of the dissemination. I mean, the fact that we used Eurobase, I understood that it was very satisfactory for people that were actually browsing through Eurobase on a regular basis, and that were very enthusiastic about the fact that they could download the data. When it comes to the feedback in terms of methodology, so we try to exhibit the work as much as possible in different conferences, also in the academic world. So, for instance, for this taxation work, I went to a fiscal simulation workshop, which was held in the beginning of 2018 in Spain, by the University of Valencia, and so we did have some feedbacks coming from the academic world. So basically, people are quite a bit convinced by the fact that statistical matching, yet not completely satisfactory, already provide some insights about the distribution, but of course need to be handled carefully, and I think basically the use of the data is clearly of interest. So this means that we, even if the methods is not fully satisfactory, it gives us some advantage in order to implement more reliable methods, such as survey integration, for which we need, of course, to find more, let's say, more to be more convincing towards the national statistical institutes in Europe.
Okay, and the last question from Ireland: how frequent will these statistics be produced?
Okay, so it largely depends on the frequency of regarding the field work for the different surveys. So if you take Silk, for instance, Silk is produced every year, but HBS is produced every 5 years, and the HFCS, the Household Finance Consumption Survey, is produced every 3 years. So at the time being, I would say every 5 years, which is a huge lag of time. But we would like, of course, to have something which is more regular, but yet we are still on the process of having the survey much more synchronized, and then trying to go on a pace which is higher.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have to close now. Thank you for these interesting insights, and many thanks also to our participants who joined us today. Now, if you wish to download the presentations, please stay with us for another minute or so. I also kindly ask you to check your inbox for a link to a very short survey about today's webinar. And the next webinar is scheduled for next Wednesday, 23rd of May, when Florian Meinfelder from University of Bamberg will talk about statistical analysis of incomplete data. So please, I'd like to ask my colleague to prepare the files for download. We'll leave the room open now for at least 10 minutes, and we'll publish the link to the recordings by the end of the week at the latest. So thank you all for now. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Martin, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.